From its inception to its conclusion, the anti-tax protests in Kenya have been a powerful testament to the influence and determination of the nation's youth. The movement, driven by widespread frustration over new tax policies, unfolded in a series of significant events that have captured national and international attention. In May, the Kenyan government introduced a new finance bill that introduces unpopular tax proposals, igniting widespread anger across the nation. The discontent among young Kenyans quickly translated into action.
We don't have jobs. We are young. We are depending on our parents. Our parents are suffering in this Kenya.
I'm here because I want to protest, because our parents didn't have the guts to stand before and protest against Ruto. But what he's doing is bad governance. And we're here to protest and show him that if our parents can't do it, we can do it.
Si hatuwezi enda. Jinsi ni watoto wetu na hatuwezi enda. I just have such holy indignation. We can't be quiet, church. We can't. It's not about Gen Z, it's about our lives.
In a matter of days, the movement gained widespread momentum. The government's initial response was dismissive, with officials insisting that the tax measures were necessary for economic stability.
Thank for helping our country organize our democratic discourse around issues. I thank you and assure you on desecration of institutions and emblems of our sovereignty. Today's events to grave threats to our national security. I assure the nation that the government has mobilized to be exercised only in accordance with the Constitution.
Police were deployed to disperse demonstrators, leading to clashes in several instances. Reports of arrests and injuries began to surface. Despite the crackdown, the protests continued unabated. The sustained pressure from the protest and mounting international scrutiny forced the government to reconsider its stance.
Consequently, having reflected on the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024 and listening keenly to the people of Kenya who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn, and I have agreed with these members that that becomes our collective position.
The Kenya's anti-tax protests have left an indelible mark on the nation's socio-political landscape. Championing the cause, the youth demonstrated remarkable unity, resilience, and leadership. This successful campaign not only resulted in significant policy changes, but also signaled a shift towards greater youth influence in shaping Kenya's future.
Now, while there have been concerns that President William Ruto might change his mind and sign the finance bill before next week's deadline, some protesters are also calling on Ruto to resign and accusing him of bad governance. Now, at the same time, some members of the youth-led protest have expressed worries that other Kenyans are using the unrest as an excuse to cause violence. Now, the 2 weeks of protest have left 39 people dead, according to the Kenyan National Human Rights Commission. Well, that said, joining me are Brian Mwindi, a journalist, as well as June Cynthia Okelo, an associate economic governance officer at the Pan-African Lawyers Union. Thank you so much for joining us.
Right, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah. Thank you. Do we have Cynthia as well? All right, so while we wait for Cynthia to join us, Brian, what would you say is going on in Kenya exactly at the moment?
Actually, it's a state of distress, and people are more likely feeling the burden of the government that is imposing on its citizens. This looks like people are now out in the streets protesting on the high cost of living, which is now being propagated by members of parliament. And Kenyans are, in a way, not satisfied by what the regime that is being led by President Ruto is having to offer to them. And that's why these protests particularly are very special, because in a way they are being led by young people, in a way that these people that are dubbed Gen Zs, these are the ones that they have not been in protest before. It's their first time that they are coming to talk to the government. They're making the government listen. So what exactly is happening in Kenya is that people are not really satisfied with the services that the government is offering, and now they are on the street to make the government listen to them. Yes.
So, but let me get this. We understand that the president has conceded, and he said that he would not go ahead with the tax bill. And we understand that that was the premise upon which the whole protest began. Why exactly are they still protesting? What is their agitation for at this moment? Why are they asking the president to step down if their calls have been heard?
Actually, it's a very interesting time to be a Kenyan, to be honest, because as you really stated, yes, the government, and that is by this chance, President Ruto is the one who withdrew the bill, and he did concede to the demands of what the Gen Zs out in the streets were protesting about. That was the genesis. That was the origin of why then we were on the streets already demanding for our rights to be heard. But it's a very interesting scenario because Kenyans right now continue protesting, not just because they want the bill rejected or withdrawn, they want now the president to step down. This is because now, as you listen to the demands, and not even demands necessarily, but the context in which the president was in a way withdrawing the bill, it was more like a gaslighting moment. A gaslighting moment that looks like this. It made Kenyans feel guilty of going out to oppose the bill. It was like out there telling Kenyans on national television of how the government is going to be losing 200 billion shillings in revenue. And this will in turn have a very big effect on the Kenyan economy, which by then it will demand the government entities reduce the expenditure. But now the big question now will be, what exactly are they cutting in terms of reducing expenditure? You'll find they are cutting school feeding programs. They are cutting the absorption of junior secondary school teachers. They are cutting absorption or even payment of health interns. Like you see, this kind of expenditure measures, they're making Kenyans feel guilty. They're making Kenyans feel like, you are out here protesting for the finance bill to come down. But you're again gaslighting us that now that you have already withdrawn, there are consequences to be felt. And these consequences, by extension, you're going to find like he was stating that he has to forego certain development projects just because we said no to the bill. Like that is exactly why Kenyans are now here on the streets protesting. They're saying, yes, you did withdraw a bill, but right now you have done enough. We don't want you in power anymore. And that's exactly why we keep on going to these streets every single time. And a very interesting fact about it is that these Gen Zs, they don't even have them. You don't have anyone to go to and, tell them to calm down. So they keep planning protests. They keep coming back to the street. They keep coming, until the agenda is agented. So that's exactly why they keep going back to the streets. They were back in the streets latest Tuesday this week, and it was an hashtag Ruto must go, an hashtag Occupy State House. So it's no longer about the finance bill anymore. It is about Ruto stepping down to power because Kenyans feel dissatisfied, they feel cheated, they feel that the president does not even really care and listen to them. That's why the protests are still ongoing.
All right, thank you so much for that breakdown, Brian. We now have June Cynthia with us, and I'd like to throw the next question at her. Now, June Cynthia, a lot of people are now saying that, you know, it's okay that the youth are protesting, it's okay that they know their rights, but it now seems like a bit of a reach because it looks like, you know, the government is light-handed, not like they're expecting any form of violence or anything, but, you know, the government is listening to their pleas and they're now just taking it a little too far. Do you think that's the case? June Cynthia, can you hear me? June Cynthia, I think you're muted. If you can check your device to be sure.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, go ahead, please.
Please, I'm asking you to repeat the question. I didn't hear you clearly.
All right.
Sorry.
First off, thank you again for joining us. So I was saying that people are speculating, basically. They're saying that, you know, the youth, is good that they're protesting, they know their rights and all that, but now it seems as though they're taking it a bit too far. Maybe because the government is a little too light-handed and then they're just trying to take advantage of it. What do you make of that theory?
Right. Thank you so much. And my apologies for joining late. But yeah, and I also appreciate the opportunity to actually talk about these issues on international television. I think right now, as Kenyans, we are quite emotional. There's some very sensitive things going on. And in my personal opinion, or in my professional opinion, I really doubt that they're going too far. I think when you look at history, when you look at past revolutions, there's some things, there's some paths that you have to go through to achieve what you need to achieve. Right now, we are dealing with a government which is being led by someone who has decided purposefully to not listen to the voice of the people, someone who pretends to listen to the voice of the people. You see, you come and table a very outrageous finance bill and expect people to accept it. You push it down people's throats when they have actually expressed their opinion or their disfavor towards this finance bill. And you, after loss of lives, after people going to the streets, after all this back and forth with the police, abductions and all that, and then you pretend that you've heard the voice of the people. We're facing a challenge whereby we're being overtaxed. We have high rates of unemployment, and then you really expect people to sit and just keep accepting these high rates of taxes while we watch the government being very extravagant and opulent in their spending. So I don't think it is too much. I think anything is possible, and I think being part of this generation that is actually on the streets, I fully support everything that is going on in Kenya, only to the extent that it is advancing the greater good. Of course, I do not support violence. I do not support the infiltration that has taken place by goons, by criminals who have actually turned the protest into something that it was originally not. It has made the protest now look like we are the bad people, but we're actually fighting for a better Kenya. We're fighting for a better future for ourselves and for our future generations to come. So I think sitting here, this is the country where the judiciary nullified sitting president's election. So anything is very possible, and we're looking forward to better things for ourselves as we continue protesting, whether on the streets or online. Yes, that is my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you, June Cynthia. Now, let me come back to you, Brian. People are asking why exactly the president's crimes cannot be forgiven. Is it because of some of the things that he has done leading up to this? Because it's looking like this is an unforgivable offense, but again, it looks like there's some form of precedence. If he said that he's not going to sign the bill, and you know he has given his word and all, and Kenyan youths are still saying that he can't be trusted, and because of that they want him to step down. Does this have anything to do with the precedents? I mean, June Cynthia listed some things. Brian, you also did. So is it because of how he has maybe been led leading up to this moment, or is it just this particular one that they're so upset about?
Not necessarily about this one. I think people, once they did vote for President Ruto, they did in large numbers, in their millions. And that is not necessarily to justify that, they had problems with him before and they overlooked his problems. What people wanted is someone who can really deliver. That's exactly what Kenyans want. And if you look at what President Ruto has been campaigning and what has been telling Kenyans, once I get into office, I'm going to be doing aid, it's going to be a bottom-up economy. He promised so much, but once he got into power, he did exactly the opposite. Notice, once it was in 2023 rather, he did pass a Finance Act of 2023, and that bill, it was aimed at raising some certain amount of taxes. Recognize that that target was not even reached with that 2023 financial bill. Now you bring in another bill in 2024 that is even much more worse than the previous one, and you expect us to accept it just because you are the one who's saying it, just because you feel that this is gonna solve a lot of Kenyan problems. But to the extreme whereby we do reject that bill and you start gaslighting us on how bad you're gonna suffer consequences, on how much you're gonna be reducing expenditure, on how much you're gonna be cutting money from the elderly, on how much you're gonna be cutting school feeding programs, then that doesn't really sit well with Kenyans. We want you to do development, but now because you have rejected your finance bill, you're not going to do for us development. Then why should we be comfortable with you as our president? But recognize something here very interesting. In as much as President Ruto is coming to say, we are going to be reducing this kind of expenditure, he does not say he's going to be reducing corruption, because we do not have a problem of taxes in Kenya. We have a problem of expenditure. Wastage and corruption is very, very rampant. And even to answer your question to some kind of degree, we have a scenario whereby members of parliament, even by extension, probably even the president, they are diverting public funds into private hands. And that has become too much. And Kenyans are like, we already tired of this and we need to know, we need change. So we just recently don't care who is exactly in power. We just want to see development. And by now, President Ruto has really fallen short of Kenyans' expectations in matters of bringing development. It has been 2 years since he ascended into power, but when you start looking down at what exactly has this guy achieved so far, if you look at his report card, it is not satisfactory enough for a Kenyan to be happy with exactly the kind of scenario that are happening. If things were soft in Kenya, of course, no one would be in the street. If people were given what exactly they want, no one would be on the street. Like, he has been in the executive for quite a long while, from a deputy president now to a president, and he seems to understand what exactly governments are run. And we people did believe in his manifesto when he was ascending to power. We did believe in his bottom-up economic model, but right now, as the Gen Z, we are now the bottom-up oversight. He's not delivering, and gonna be more and more protest until he does deliver. We want to see now, where do the taxes that we already do pay end up to? Where are they? We need to see something, and we are not seeing it, so we are justified to be on the street till we see something. So it has nothing to do with Ruto's history about, corruption and all those kind of atrocities against human rights. I think that is a different kind of ball game and topic we're talking about here. Currently, we just need bare minimum development. We just need to survive without feeling that burden on our shoulders. And if we get that, everybody gonna be comfortable. If we get the jobs, if we get
let me just
continuous flow of money in our pockets, if we can afford basic needs.
Thank you, Brian. Very quickly, let me just ask June Cynthia the last question because we're running out of time. My question is, do you think that this is going to trigger some sort of reaction from other youths across other African countries who feel like their government has sort of treated them badly? Because we see how the Gen Zs are standing up for themselves in Kenya, being fearless, being brave, and confronting the issues as they should. Do you think that that is going to trigger an effect as well in other African youth?
Well, thank you for that question. Really, I truly truly hope so. But to answer your question, I think we are talking about generational reaction. We're talking about Gen Zs and most of the millennials. So when you talk about the Gen Zs, we're talking about an era where technology has become very the use of technology has become very widespread. So because even when we talk about the finance bill, people were actually using apps like, for example, ChatGPT to help them read through that finance bill. They're using apps to summarize that finance bill for them. They're using apps to provide legal provisions for them to argue out. So we're talking about a generation that is very exposed to technology, social media, and all that. So it's not just in Kenya. I really trust and believe that we're living in different times. We're living in times when you can literally not hide from the public what is going on. So living in this social media era, we've seen people talking about the things that are happening in Kenya, people from thousands of miles away, people who are in the US, people in the UK, people in Asia, talking about things happening in Kenya. Some of them have more details than even those who are in Kenya. So it shows you just how quickly information moves. And so it can come as an inspiration to other youths who have seen how we mobilize through Twitter, we mobilize through Instagram, we made viral posts to share out through various platforms. This is the kind of mobilization you've not seen before. We've never seen this kind of mobilization before. So even if we did fight for our independence in the 60s, we're fighting for a different kind of independence right now. Might not be that different, but yes, we're fighting for our independence once again, but now with the use of technology, the use of social media. And I truly, truly hope that even as we continue, that our African counterparts, the youth in Africa can stand up and break the chains of neocolonialism and corruption and get rid of all these things that are actually keeping us down at this time.
Okay, thank you so much, Cynthia. I want to use this opportunity to say thank you, Brian Muindi, a journalist, and of course, June Cynthia Okelo, the Associate Economic Governance Officer at the Pan-African Lawyers Union as well. Thank you for speaking with us regarding what's going on in Kenya. And if anything, we like that the youth across Africa are becoming more aware of governance and are trying to, be part of the decision-making process. That's something that we love to see. And we hope that that vigor, that passion is not going to die down. This is not to say that violence is the answer or to incite any form of violence or outbreak like that. But we like that the youth are becoming more aware, and we hope that it continues. Once again, thank you so much, Brian and June Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.